Today's episode, we are talking about behavior. Specifically, we are going to talk about sensory processing disorder and what we can do about it in a classroom environment. I know I'm not an occupational therapist, but oftentimes you're not going to have an occupational therapist. You're going to have a child with a speech and language impairment that has a significant sensory processing disorder. They will not qualify for services, unfortunately, under occupational therapy because their motor skills are developing approximate to their chronological age. However, they have a sensory processing disorder, and that is definitely affecting their ability to function in a classroom environment. So these are children where you're getting the private preschool teachers contacting you and have a list of problem behaviors in the classroom with this child. What are we going to do about it? And you, my friend, being a speech language pathologist, it is on your shoulders, unfortunately. I want to help you today. I want to give you the research. I want to share with you what I do that's been effective. I am not recommending this for any of your clients. You know your clients, you know your back porch better than I do. I am just going to share what has worked with children and my back porch and children I've worked with. I want you to take it with a grain of salt and consult your own occupational therapist on your team for what's going to work on your back porch and with the children you work with. Today, I'm going to focus on children who are sensory seeking. These tend to be the bowl and the china shop children that I hear the most about. And this is a short episode, so I want to really give you something tangible that you can put into use on Monday morning. Let's talk about first the research. Where do we stand in sensory processing disorder? If you're like me, you find it rare to find a child without any sensory issues today. You're correct if you feel that way because the research supports it. They say that children with developmental delays, and that includes communication impairments, they estimate anywhere between 40% to 90%, this is the latest research, also have sensory processing disorder. So if you're working with children with special needs, odds are you're working also with sensory processing disorder. And odds are you're probably not getting support for that sensory processing disorder because it doesn't have enough of an educational impact if you're working in the schools for the child to qualify for services. It's really oftentimes squarely put on your shoulders to help this child when the sensory processing disorder can be very debilitating if it's not addressed. But that's why it's so important you're here. Roll up your sleeves with me. We can do hard things. We've got this. When we look at the research, the first thing it's important to know, like I said, is highly prevalent. If you're working with children with autism, it's estimated 90% of them have sensory processing disorder. If you're working with children with ADHD, the latest research indicates approximately 60% of them, more than half, have sensory processing disorder. The type of sensory processing disorder I'm going to talk about today, these are the ones that I get the most phone calls and the most emails from teachers that really need some help, are children who are sensory seeking. Now, when you see these children, this is what it's going to look like in a preschool environment. Now, a little bit of background. I also have a background as a preschool teacher. I worked as a preschool teacher in the past, and I'm getting my doctorate in early childhood special education. And aside from that, I teach on Mondays. I teach a large group of children with communication impairments. So I kind of take on the role as teacher in that situation. I get to see firsthand, does this actually work in a classroom environment? I also see these children for therapy, which is not at all like a classroom environment. But this is what you're going to see in the large classroom environment if you observe the child. These are the children that like to touch everything. They've got their hands all over everything. Oftentimes they're such seekers that they will just kind of like jump over a table to get to something. They'll climb up to get to something. There's no going around. There's no asking for. They're just like throwing their bodies at things. That's how intense it is to seek out this sensation of feeling it and getting it. That's one thing you're going to see with these children is that they want to touch and experience everything with their hands. They're very, let's just say, grabby. The second thing behavior you're going to see with these sensory seeking, tactile sensory seeking children is that they crave physical contact. They might be the kids that come up to you and they take their head and they bump you, like they bump your shoulder in the head. They're not being mean. They really do crave that physical contact, that feedback. They may be someone that bumps someone. It's not a behavior to like, I'm going to push you out of the way, I'm going to shove you. It's because they want that physical contact with their body. Sometimes they'll just like go and put their hand on someone. Like it seems like no fun, but it helps them with proprioception and knowing where they are in space. That person is kind of like their armchair. Now, the other people typically don't feel that way about that. They're like looking at their arm like, what are you doing? But for them, it's like, oh, this really helps me a lot. Thank you. I'm just gonna put my arm around you because like now I know where I am in space. You're going to see that craving of physical contact. Now, the preferring messy play, this will just drive you bonkers. These are the kids that when you have the big 5 gallons of rice or water or beans in your sensory bin, they're the ones that are going to tip it over. They get things really messy and it's really fun. They're the ones that they're going to go and see this beautiful bulletin board that you've made with 3-dimensional everything that took 5 hours to put together. And they're going to love ripping it off and seeing everything all torn up. They're going to like that. They like messy. When they're eating, their food is going to be all over the floor. It's going to be all over them. It's going to be falling out of their sides and their mouths. I mean, they are messy. This sounds like just a description of myself right from the beginning to the end. The next thing that you're going to see is you're going to see that they tend to have like a high tolerance for pain. Like as I was saying before, they may bump into someone and oh, that really hurt. You told them, do you see how he has a sad face? What are you talking about that hurt? I just barely brushed him. They didn't feel that that was a mean thing for them to do. They just felt like, oh, I just like walked by them. What are you talking about? Also, when they're that bowl in the china shop, like they will just like walk through tables and chairs with these hard metal edges and stuff, and boom, 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 to get something. And they didn't even stop them because they didn't even feel it, the banging of the chairs. Once again, it's that they're not registering that feedback from touch. It's just kind of like boom, boom, boom. I just slammed my legs into all these metal chairs and metal tables to get this toy that was on the ground. And I didn't even feel it. You're going to see things like that for children that are sensory seeking and tactile, craving it and giving themselves increased feedback with their behavior, like throwing their bodies on the floor. The next one is they might appear clumsy or uncoordinated. They're bumping into things. They are too close to people. They're like, they don't get physical. They're walking, excuse me, they're walking down the hallway, with their hands on the lockers the whole time. Bang, 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 bang. They know where they are in space. Perhaps you see them pointing their toes in, which gives them increased proprioception to know where they are in space. Or you might see them pointing their toes out like a penguin to give them increased proprioception to know where they are in space. The next area is they have difficulty with physical boundaries. For instance, if you have them in an open space, you're going to see these children all over the room. It might be like, okay, it's time for the house area. I need you to stay in the house area. And you have a child running around the entire room. And what they want to know is, where are the boundaries? They're going to be going the perimeter of the room, around the room, as if they're like like a track star. And you're going to be wondering, what's going on here? They want to know, where's my body in space? If you have them in an area like a house area, which is more of an open area, you're just going to want to like close the door by using a divider or something to let them know this is the house area. This is the calming corner. You can't have the calming corner open to the rest of the room with no dividers, because they're going to go off around the entire room if they need time to calm their body in space to figure out where they are in that room. You're going to see them all over the room. It's really important to give that extra physical boundary to them. Now, what can we do for them? These are some tips that have really worked for me with certain children. It's going to be different with every child you work with. One thing I like to do is I have this portable divider. I use the Lakeshore white board divider it's made out of wood, it's high quality, and it has wheels on the bottom. I don't like those flimsy tubey ones because they fall over all the time and it's just flimsy and fussy. And the kids can just like walk through it and walk over it. I like to roll that around with a roller to kind of cut off those spaces like I talked about before. If it's the art area, I want to make that clear and I'll close off the door area to it. So it's like, this is the art section. We're doing art right now. Then if the child moves over to the next area, okay, now it's house time. I would just turn the divider and make that divider like a door. The door is closed, this is house time. This is our house area time. Okay, now we're going to move over to the Lego table and I'll just move that divider over and it just provides this little wall in different areas. Let them know this is the Lego area. Without that divider, I find these children will go all around the room and they become dysregulated because they don't know where their body's in space and it's too much environmental stimuli coming in from all directions. Space between them and the peers sitting next to them. I really make some space. And what you can do is you can have them in a QB chair if they need more space to know where their body is in space. Or if they're sitting on the floor, you can have a mat, which is like we stay on. I use leaves. You stay on the leaf. Nice staying on the leaf, which is like a lily pad. And you're like a frog sitting on the lily pad. Everyone needs to stay on their lily pad. But something that gives them that physical boundary, that visual boundary to let them know where their bodies are in space so that they're not sitting on their peers' laps. We want to think about our idle hands. Now, if you just have their hands free, idle hands are the hands of the devil is the saying, but they're often going to want to explore with those hands. So it's like, what do you touch? Well, you've got peers next to you. So you're going to want to touch your peers. Now, of course, that's going to be a problem if you have a sensory avoidant peer that's next to the child, which is quite possible because that is very common as well. What we want to do is have something to keep their hands occupied. Here's some suggestions. I like to have like a little mystery box. I buy the Lakeshore What's Inside mystery box, and I will fill it with those little plastic figurines. Could be little plastic dinosaurs, little plastic water animals, little plastic farm animals. It could be cars, whatever the child likes, and they can just go and they can look at the little figurines inside of their mystery box where they're sitting during group time. They're getting that touch experience, they're getting that feedback, and I find the children are paying attention during the group. They just need something to give them physical feedback. Another thing that I find works is that something they really like, they can hold on to. If the child really loves dinosaurs, while they're in group time, they can hold on to their favorite Spinosaurus, their favorite Velociraptor. The children just need to have something in their hands, and that really grounds them. Some people like to use fidget toys, like those little poppy things where you're going pop, 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 or the koosh ball, or something like that to keep their hands occupied. So it gives them that feedback and helping them know where their body is in space, the touch feedback. There's lots of different things you could use for the touch feedback. Some children like to look at books and flip books, something that just keeps those hands nice and busy because there's someone that always needs to be touching something. And if there's nothing there, they're going to be touching their peers. Another thing I do is I have them, for instance, sometimes carry things and be a helper. If we're leaving at the end of the day, okay, I need someone to carry the pictures that we did today to bring them out. Thank you. You're going to be my helper and carry the pictures out. Just real authentic tasks that you can think about. I need you to carry the hand sanitizer. I need you to hold on to the bubbles for me. So you can give them all of these jobs where they are being a helper and they have something in their hand that they're carrying because transitional times can be difficult for children. And during those transitional jobs, there's always something that you've got to bring with you. He's your helper. Okay, I need your helping hands. Could you carry something from point A to point B? Now, when it comes to unsupervised time, what I would highly recommend is this might be a time where you have the child work independently. Because the child has not learned to keep their hands to themselves, if you have them unsupervised with no adult there in a preschool setting for an extended period of time, like for 10 minutes, odds are what's going to happen is they're going to be like, well, here I have this human jack in the box next to me. And if I push their button, they're going to give this huge reaction. And that's to someone who is sensory seeking, tactile, who his body is not organized in space, and you give feedback to help them know where their body's space, that can be quite rewarding. So what you might want to think about is independent task. So when why, for instance, if there's unsupervised time in which children are playing, for instance, you find in the house area, if the child is unsupervised, things tend to happen, such as out comes the broom and the child swinging the broom around, and it could hit someone. This might be a time where you have a structured task area where it's like, okay, this is going to be a downtime in which you can look at these books or these puzzles or do these Legos, or do this Play-Doh. This is going to be an independent task area because safety is of the most paramount importance. And some children are just not there yet at the preschool level where they can be unsupervised with other children because of their sensory needs and their needs for sensory feedback, and children do provide that. If you touch these children, you get this jack in the box reaction. So that unsupervised nature can be very unsafe, and safety is #1 priority. And for that, you might just think, how can I have an accommodation for this child where they're unsupervised, but they're doing an independent task at this time? They're doing puzzles, they're doing, like I said before, Play-Doh, Legos, drawing, coloring. This is an independent time task for them instead of being with peers without adult supervision at this time. So that is another modification you can make to make sure that everyone is safe. Okay. So another thing we can do is think about the child's schedule. We might want to have a sensory break worked into the routine. It's really important to not have this be as like an inadvertent reward. The child hits another child, then it's like, oh, you need a sensory break. Let's go on the hall and you get to go jump on you're going to go to the gym and jump on a trampoline. Now that would be a really bad thing to do because the child's got to really quickly learn, if I hit someone, I get to go to the gym, or I get to go on a trampoline, or I get to go for a walk with the wagon, or I get to do. So you definitely don't want to do that. You want to have it built into their schedule. Some sensory breaks that you could use is you can have a wagon with heavy things inside. You can have jobs for the child to do for a sensory break. They have to deliver mail. The mail might be your attendance or whatever to the principal's office to slide under the door. It might be a task such as that, so that they get that walking break. It could be running around the gym. Could be pulling a wagon, like I said before, with heavy things inside. Just thinking about that sensory break in their routine, and it's pre-planned in the routine. It's not something, you definitely don't want that to be a reward for aberrant behavior, for putting your hands on your friends, or for disruptive behavior, for ripping down a bulletin board, or flipping over a desk, or something of that nature, and then they get to go jump on a trampoline. It's always preventative. When we're looking at all of these suggestions that I've given you today, and there's some that I haven't mentioned, like a weighted vest, and that's because that's something I definitely would recommend with an occupational therapist consulting on that, because you definitely don't want to put a weighted vest on a little body. There might be other issues and you inadvertently hurt this child. I'm not going to say that, but those can be wonderful as well. Or if you're looking at things like putting a desk that you attach to a QB chair, that's another thing that would be an occupational therapist modification, because that restricts the child's ability to move. Thinking about those kind of modifications that are a little bit more invasive, then I would definitely want a professional support on that who specializes in sensory processing disorder. But these are general things that any teacher could do that I suggested to you today, and any parapro could implement, or any speech pathologist could do. I hope that this is helpful to you, these suggestions. I want you to take all of this information, do what you do best, roll up your sleeves, and make the world a better place, one child at a time. You will always be first. I hope to see you at the SIS drawing board, and let's change lives together.